welcome to Coil Coaching, Thriving One. We're so glad to be with you guys today. And today we've got a great topic for you. It's belonging.
Yes.
Before we jump into that, though, we want to hear what's coming up. What's going on, babe?
Well, first and foremost, Coil Coaching Women. It's been growing, and I love all the engagements and the happenings within the group. We've been meeting online so far since March.
Yeah.
And so I've always had a heart to do some in-person gatherings. So we will have our first one here in Redding, California.
So exciting.
So any surrounding areas, I've already had people say that they're from Sacramento, San Francisco, and Oregon. They're wanting to come.
Yes.
And so I'm so excited. So if you're driving distance, it's going to be on July 8th. From 6 to 8 p.m. and more information will be given out in a few days. And we will also still have our online gathering this month in July, which will be in the July 22nd. And so more information will go out then as well.
So good.
So we've grown to having 285 women representing 30 nations.
Yes.
Wow. Hungry women. It's so incredible. So we just had our online business fairs, and that went great. So if you want to join us, you can check out coilcoaching.com/women.
Yes.
Or go find us on Facebook. It's a Facebook group, and you can just type in Coil Coaching Women and join in there.
Yeah, that's so exciting. Mm-hmm. So excited for you ladies. Yes. Go women. So powerful.
Amen.
Yeah, and we're also getting ready for launching our programs. So we have two major programs. One is a personal development program called Kingdomized One.
Yes.
And we also have coaching and consulting, life consulting programs that we run. So we train people to be coaches and or life consultants.
Yes.
What's life consultant? It's more on the counseling side.
Yes.
So that spectrum is more of like, helping people in the area of transformation and life change on a deeper level. So so super excited about that. It should be up now or it'll be in the next week on our website, the details for that, but it's launching in September. So that's exciting.
Yes, lots happening.
Yeah.
So
So let's jump into our topic.
Well, let's dive in right now to the topic of belonging.
Yes.
This has been something that's on my heart, and one of the reasons obviously why I started and launched Coil Coaching Women.
Yeah.
So in a way, like this conversation, I'm hoping to be able to share, both of us share the importance of belonging and what belonging is and how do you experience it. So we want you guys to join in on the conversation, so we're going to have an open conversation, and we're hoping that you would also join in.
Yeah.
So belonging is identified as a basic human need.
Yes.
So as human beings, we are happier and healthier when we feel belong.
Yeah.
Because when that belonging lacks, it affects our self-concept and our ability to experience fulfillment.
Yeah.
So people experience belonging anywhere from friends, families, clubs. At least when I was young, we called them clubs, like clubs as in like girl club, boy club, whatever club, and neighborhoods, your neighbors.
Yes.
Faith communities, churches, interest groups, schools, and so many more places. So we're hoping that this open conversation would invite you to explore where and how you feel a sense of belonging and what kind of impact that has.
Yeah.
So the first question that we want to discuss is, how do you define belonging, and how do you experience it? So I'll start.
Yeah.
So belongingness is the human emotional need to be an accepted member of a group.
Yeah.
Whether it is family, friends, coworkers, a religion, or something else. Some people tend to have an inherent desire to belong and be an important part of something greater than themselves.
Yeah. So good.
What do you want to add? Do you want to add something?
Yeah. Yeah, that's such a great definition.
Mhm.
And I think it goes back to what you said earlier, when you started off, that it's a basic need.
Yes.
And I think a lot of times I've gone through life experiencing life as it's happening with the limited
Right.
information that I know.
Mhm.
And when we look at life and the basics of it, it's so key, one, depending on your personality, but also in
Right.
general, that we all have this innate need
Mhm.
to experience connection.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I believe that's why God created us. One of the
Mhm.
core reasons why God created
Yes.
us. So we see it
Yes.
all throughout history, in the
Mhm.
positive and the negative, that people
Mhm.
long to belong. And we have
Yeah.
it from the extremes on the negative aspect of gangs and what happens in that,
Yeah.
to the religious
Yeah.
spaces, and like what you mentioned, to all forms of clubs. I was always a
Right.
part of something growing up.
Right.
I mean, we
Yes,
all
me too.
are. Like, if it's a school. So I think that, you know, personal health is, it's
Mhm.
so key to grow in understanding what you need as an individual and what community you're looking
Right.
for.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Because it's a human emotional need.
Mm,
It's basically like it's a part of actually soul care, as well as,
hmm.
if I may add that,
Oh, definitely.
like there's the emotional need to be accepted. And so the
Yes.
key word there also is accepted.
Hmm.
Acceptance goes, it's pretty simple to say, but it goes deep,
Yeah.
because acceptance meaning like being accepted for who you are
Right.
without having to adjust so much of who you are in order to become a part of a group, to
Yeah.
belong
Yeah.
in a group.
Yeah. I think what you just mentioned is one of the key elements of love.
Mm-hmm.
Acceptance is one of the key element experiences
Yeah.
of love. And when
Mm-hmm.
Christ gave us the great commandment to love God and love
Right.
others as you love yourself,
Yeah.
like that covers all laws that were put out in through Scripture. But in
Mm-hmm.
general, I mean, we see it in the Christian realm and the non-Christian
Yeah.
realm. That the reality is people are looking for compassion, they're looking for
Mm-hmm.
connection, they're looking for
Exactly.
acceptance.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's so key. And what's damaging is being in an
Mm-hmm.
environment, be it your family environment, be it a social environment, be a
Right.
work environment, where there
Right.
is not that sense of acceptance.
Mm-hmm.
If you're causing that effect, or
Right.
if you're staying in a place that's
Right.
not helpful. I know I've transitioned through different areas over my life
Mm-hmm.
where I've recognized, well, this environment isn't helpful for my personal um, awareness and growth in the
Yeah.
truth that I am loved.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. That's amazing, babe.
Mm,
Yeah. So it's a key is emotional need and acceptance.
yeah.
And it encompasses the love and compassion.
Mm,
Those are really great keys.
so key.
Yeah. So the next question is, why is belonging so important?
Mm,
Right? That's a good question.
yeah.
Because a sense of belonging is crucial to our life satisfaction or fulfillment, I would say.
Mm,
Happiness within our mental and physical health, and even the longevity. It gives us a sense of purpose and meaning. Okay,
hmm.
these two words are added on into this. Like I didn't recognize that the sense of purpose and meaning can also be added into belonging.
Right.
Because like what you said earlier about the gangs and
Right.
all that stuff, they
Religious
always have,
environments.
they
Yeah.
always have those purpose, to talk about purpose and meaning,
Mm,
because research has shown that loss of belonging has been associated with stress,
right.
illness, and decreased well-being, and even depression.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Because it goes back to that basic need. If that
Yeah.
need isn't being met, then there's this breakdown that happens within us psychologically, motivationally.
Mm-hmm.
And so I know when I've always been a part of some kind of group. We've always been
Mm-hmm.
part of some
Yeah.
kind of larger group, normally a nonprofit and or a
Right.
religious environment. And there's something powerful behind
Mm-hmm.
people coming together around a cause
Yeah.
and going after it together and supporting one another.
Right.
There's so much
Yes.
life that's given
Yes.
in that space. So
Mm-hmm.
that's one environment. Like a sports team is another. There's a common goal. We're
Right.
supporting one another. We
Mhm.
have our roles, and we're moving something forward.
Exactly.
I think it's what's tricky is when we don't have a specific goal in mind. So I think especially like even for us now that we've
Right.
transitioned out of a religious environment and we're doing our own business, like we have camaraderie together, but there is
Right.
something in like multiple people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's kind of like
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
birthing of the
Mm-hmm.
desire and the need has created and birthed
Right.
the women's coil
Coil
coaching
Coaching
women.
Women.
It's
Our
birthed our
programs.
kingdomized one, our
Yes.
coil coaching.
Yes.
One, I see like we're fathers and mothers because of
Mhm.
our seasoned age and experience,
Right.
where we naturally create
Mhm.
community. And
Yeah.
it all comes down to this simple thing
Wow.
called the need for belonging and
Yes.
connection
Yes.
to experience it,
Yeah.
and now at where we're at
Mhm.
to create it.
Yeah. And I think,
Mm,
now that you mentioned that, like, I think it's also key to understand that going back to the definition of belongingness is that it is a need,
right,
that it's not just a want, like it's a need. It's like
right,
breathing air,
right,
food, shelter, sleep, and it's almost like it's not as obvious because it's not something that is tangible, like eating food, drinking water, exercising and stuff, but it's almost like because it is an emotional human need.
mm,
It's almost like put on the side or back burner, and that's why people go to the extreme of saying like, I don't need anybody else,
right,
and I think that increases what with the association with the stress and the depression,
mm,
and that's why I believe depression sets in, is because like when you isolate yourself,
yeah,
in a way, because community is tricky, belongingness and community is tricky.
yeah,
It's like,
yeah,
in a way, community and belongingness can also bring pain,
right,
but in a way that your healing will also come in belongingness and community.
right,
So that's why it's like eating food, right? There's food that's good for you,
yeah,
and there's food that when you eat that's junk, and so it creates a problem with your physical health.
oh, for sure,
And so yeah, so that's why, like, this topic of belongingness is also like really important, especially when we did our I started the Coil Coaching Women.
mm,
And right now, we're in the middle and finishing up with our mentoring group that I'm doing in hearing the heart of God.
yeah,
And it has created this sense of belongingness where
mm,
we're all going after something, we're all hungry for something, but we're all, like different parts of our lives, different aspects of our lives, different ages. And, we have about 30 people in that group, 32 people in 8 different nations.
right,
So yeah, so it's like belongingness is also not just a common goal, but also the acceptance
hmm,
that we play a different part.
yeah,
It's like we're a body with different members.
come on,
Yes.
sounds familiar, almost sounds biblical.
Oh yeah. I want to this other one, I want to address this really quick, and I want, your input as
Yeah,
a father, as a brother, like friend, in your community age group, friend group. So I have been pondering over this word, and it's, the question is, what is the feeling of not belonging called?
mm,
And I've come to look at it as estrangement, like estrangement, is the feeling that you don't belong,
yeah,
especially when you're surrounded with other people. Because this is the thing. And so like, okay, I'm a part of a community, but at the same time, you feel estranged,
right,
the feeling of being estranged. Therefore, your human emotion need, you don't belong.
mm,
And even when you're surrounded by other people,
right,
if you've ever been, if you've ever had to sit by yourself in a school cafeteria or anywhere,
hmm,
you know what estrangement feels. And so
right,
I'm not saying like, because I do also love to be alone, like to kind of recharge. I also like to eat by myself sometimes, and I have no problem with that. But that's not what I mean. What I
mm,
mean is like you are in a community, or you are in a structured, like, family, community, friend group, and still can feel that you don't belong.
right.
Do you have any insights on that? Like a feeling or
Yeah, like what are those feelings like?
Mhm.
Yeah, so I think definitely when you talk about the emotional side of things, you feel the loneliness.
Right.
You're going to feel sadness. That's where you start dipping into depression when that need is not being met
Right.
consistently. You're not in
Yeah.
that space. I think mine leads more to, what creates um, a lack of belonging.
Yeah.
So I think that's
Yeah.
maybe for another topic,
Right.
or as we move on. But yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't have a ton to say on that specific piece, but yeah.
I was just really curious, because I'm not sure like if it's like a male female thing, or
Mm,
I feel like it's in general,
yeah.
like a general thing where, and again, I'm not, and this could be also a topic of conversation that you can have, with your friends
Yeah.
and family, and and you can even give us some feedback or insight that you may have. But this is also pretty important to recognize, like, that we could be a part of a community and still feel that you don't belong.
Right.
And and how you address that, like, how would you address that, like, and all, even communicate that, without the feeling of being um judged in a way, and so I think that this is another probably bigger conversation.
Yeah.
But I wanted
I
to
feel it's leading into a bigger
Yeah.
conversation. I'm like, I got a lot to say about
we
that.
can go to that on a different time, or maybe you can have a heart-to-heart conversation with that, and obviously you can contact us, and if you have any insights and you need help and stuff, like, that's definitely a different side. But I wanted to put that out there as a, like a dangle it in front of you, because we don't want to ignore it.
Right.
It needs to be addressed, and whether it's professionally through us or with you guys, like just a conversation with your friends, like a deeper conversation.
Yeah.
So anyway, like, we talk about belonging, and we talk about, like, why is it important, but how do we create a sense of belonging? Like, let's say, whether you're a leader, a manager, a CEO, or a mom, a dad, a friend. There's some many ways, like, we're gonna address 4 things today, so that way, like, you can, like, oh, okay, it's a good topic. Belonging is a good topic, but how do we put that into practice? Like, what are some of the practical tools that we can do?
Yeah.
So the first one that I love doing is checking in with people.
Oh yeah.
So
I think
especially
you're really good at that.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Like, and for me, it's I've learned that whenever God puts someone in my heart, like, even if it's not something like I didn't have a dream, don't need to have a dream. If your name pops up in my heart or your face, that's my cue. I take that as a hint from God or from myself, to check in on them.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's as simple as, like, oh, hey, I'm thinking about you. Hope you're doing well. Would love to catch up, or how are you doing?
Yeah.
So, because people feel the greatest sense of belonging when leaders, if you're a leader, friends, family, coworkers, and bosses check in with them, whether it's personally or professionally.
Right.
So
good.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a very important key. Yeah. No, I think you do it so well. And I think this goes back to some of the personality expressions too. Like, some people have a higher awareness and need for community connection, and some people are more like on the introvert spectrum, and don't do it as much. And so for the introvert, so I can talk, I'm a bit more of an introvert. I'm an omnivert. I'm both. But,
I think I am.
But you're better at extroverted connection. I have to be very intentional and work harder for it, just because it's not as I don't know, it's natural? I'll say not as natural, because I'm really good at connecting. It's just,
you are very
I experience the need level, like the need level goes up to, I don't need it as much, but when I do, I'm like, oh, I'm at a place I recognize, oh, hey, I need to reach out. And part of that is not just what I need, but it's also like, okay, what is this community that I'm a part of need also, and reaching out in that aspect.
That's good. Yeah.
It's kind of a personality awareness.
Right. Sometimes I do it like in a group text, but most of the time, as simple as it can be, like, even if it's just one person, just a really quick note, when the pandemic first happened, a lot of people felt isolated, especially the ones, like, there's a meme that went on, like, introverted friends, check on your extroverted friends. We are not doing well.
Right, so real.
So in a way, you know, sometimes like for those of you, do what works for you.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't have to be a pressure thing. It just has to be like something that you do that, especially if you get the sense of it, you know. For someone who's like more in the introverted side, you don't have to talk to 5 people.
Right.
One person is enough. Like sometimes I do that. I just text one person.
And normally that's what it is.
Yeah.
At least from my experience as also an introvert, I enjoy more the one-on-one experience.
Right.
Probably more than the group setting.
Right. Yeah. That's so good. Okay. So the next one, this is probably something that I have been practicing as a leader for the last, more so in the last 5 to 10 years, as I felt like I was being more aware as a leader of what my people need. So this one is good. Give people a voice who are feeling ignored. So this takes a lot of awareness. You know, for example, if I'm leading a discussion, like especially when I'm doing a mentoring group or a meeting, you know, I usually call on people who are trying to speak up but can't get a word in edgewise.
Right.
You know, because the people who are like, you ask a question and they jump in right away, those are not the people I'm worried about. You know, I'm more like, I look around, you know, especially in Zoom. In person, it's a lot easier to get a feel for it, but in Zoom, you know, it's a lot different. So I like to look at everybody's faces, you know, and I can always have a hint of like, okay, someone wants to say something, but they need space to pause so they can get in.
Yeah.
So when I sense that, you know, after the person or a few people talk, I'd be like, oh my goodness, they're so great, so good. Thank you for the feedback, the insight, wisdom, whatever. And then I turn to a person, I say like, wow, Matt, do you have anything? You know, and there's no pressure.
Right.
You know, sometimes there's no pressure, you know, and or sometimes I say, okay, like I would love to hear from anybody who has not spoken yet.
Right.
Those are like easy ways to do it, you know. It's probably a lot like more stressful if I call on an introvert, right? Like say like, Matt, do you have something? You're like, oh, but when you sense that there's something, I usually try to open it up with, oh, anybody else want to say something, especially if you haven't spoken yet. And then I always say, I'm okay with the pause. We can just have an awkward pause until somebody speaks up.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's important, because kind of what this point talks about is awareness.
Yes.
Right. Like,
yes,
if I want to experience healthy community, I'm an important contributor and also a form of a leader. It doesn't have to be a point person, but I'm also taking responsibility to invite people into it, instead of it either being all about me or all about the most loudest person. But having self-awareness as an extrovert also of like drawing people in to that space, because they bring a valuable part, but maybe they're more on the introvert spectrum, or maybe they're having a bad day and they don't want to talk. But there's still there's this invitation, and I think that's what acceptance is. Acceptance is the invitation.
Right. Oh, that's good. The acceptance is in the form of the invitation.
Yes.
Oh, I love that.
And that's love.
No. Yes.
Right. So we're creating a space for mutual love and compassion to be experienced.
Exactly. That's really good, babe. I love that. And from there, you know, giving people a voice who are feeling ignored. The other way that you can do it too is ask for input.
Right.
Like really simple. Ask for input. You know, in a team or group setting, find out what you can be doing to promote, for example, because this is our topic today, find out what you can be doing to promote belonging from others. You know, it's just really something simple. Ask for input. Just say like, what we're doing, like, what do you think? Asking for input can be so simple, but so powerful.
Yeah. And that's, again, it's creating a space to invite people into.
Exactly.
Yeah. And that feels like, oh, I'm being, it's almost like a vacuum. You're creating a vacuum for people to come into.
Right. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. And I think asking for input, especially if you are a leader or a manager of some sort, like it really creates value for people,
Yeah.
for your team members, that regardless of what their position is in the team, each person is a unique individual and they have unique experiences, and therefore they also have unique wisdom.
Yeah.
It's almost like one of the things that I do, or I used to do, like when creating a team, and it's still something that I believe in,
Yeah.
is that I would, whenever I would interview people, I would say, I like the me that's in you, but what I love the most is the me that's not in you.
Yeah.
Because that means that when I invite a person in my team who doesn't think like me, who thinks differently, who addresses things differently, just does things differently, it doesn't negate my leadership. It actually increases and expands my capacity to lead. That's why I love working with leadership teams. Like whenever I do leadership teams, I love hearing other people's perspective, because I'm like, oh, I don't have to feel that I have to be the one talking or teaching.
Right.
If I feel a grace on someone's life and I'm like, oh, they're really good at it, I have a value for it and a passion for it. If they can do a better job at it than me, like, I would want to give somebody else the floor to express their wisdom and input and stuff. So it creates a culture of celebration, which comes to our next one.
Yeah.
Celebrate unique identity.
Yes.
Because people feel proud to be a part of a community or workplace or work for a company that has a positive culture and a culture of celebration where they can be themselves.
Yes. So
Yes.
good. Yeah. Celebration.
I think you
key.
do that really well with with our communities.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Celebration is key in our own journey for ourselves and in what we do for others and with others. It like people want to belong to the space of hope.
I like that.
People want to belong to a space where there's courage being delivered or put out there or demonstrated or inviting them into.
Yeah.
And celebration is a part of that, seeing. And it helps get your eyes off of yourself, which is an important space to see those around you when you're talking about the relational aspect and really lift people up.
Yeah, that's really good.
And I think too, even before we land this, I think there's a key element here that I feel like we need to mention is in the process of experiencing belonging and allowing that need to be met and growing in that, that we need to understand that life is seasonal.
Oh, yes.
And
yes,
I know for us, we've gone through different seasons and we've had drastic season changes where we leave one environment of comfortability and go into another one. So we left the mission field and we went to Oregon. We were in Oregon for a year and a half, and then we came to Reading. And then we were in Reading for a long season and in a part of an environment, and we transitioned out of that environment. And each transition, there is this separation from if belonging that was comfortable in what you knew.
Yes.
And for a lot of you that are listening, I want to encourage you, if you're not experiencing belonging, there's probably a lot of factors that go into that experience. I always say, what are the obvious things? And then what are the things that are needed to grow?
Exactly. Yeah.
And so even age group, when we were both singles and or what I call married singles without kids, our friends groups, some of those friend groups were easier and more natural.
Yes.
Because once you start having kids, then your life's more about the community of who you are with your kids, not as much with singles. It's with other, I know when we transitioned out of the last environment, we were looking for people that had kids.
Oh, yes.
And how we can do life together. And because of our skill set, it was very natural and easy for us to create and to get into those spaces.
Right.
But if you're like, man, I've been struggling for a while to make connection, or I'm in a space where I don't know how, then my encouragement to you would be to grab a hold of forced environments.
Or structured
Structured environments. Yeah, structured environments.
Yes, because they start there sometimes.
Right. Like,
they start there and then they become organic.
Yeah. So like with
The
for
Coil
what you're
Coaching
doing,
Women.
Coil Coaching Women, right? So if you're a woman out there
Mhm.
and you're wanting to connect and develop that space,
Mhm.
then do that.
Right.
Find a space that is already have a structure to it
Mhm.
and involve yourself.
Right.
Right.
That's
I
really
know
good.
in our Kingdomize One program, we talk about 3 core elements, which is
Mhm.
identity, destiny, so what you do in life, and then more specifically relationships. And this is a key element in our lives is, so like even if you're looking
Mhm.
for to belong, joining Kingdomize One, definitely you'll
Definitely.
experience belonging and intimacy because we go after those things, but also you get trained on how to create it where you're at.
Exactly.
And I think a lot of times people don't know what
Yes.
they're looking for.
Mhm. And sometimes joining something, you do trial and error. Like,
Right.
oh, okay, you just realize like the key thing that the win, it's not win or lose, it's win or learn.
Right.
And it's, you know, like if you think about it as win or lose, then you lose. It's like there's high stakes.
Right. It's high
But if
stakes.
it's win or learn, then your win, it's still a win-win. Like if you come to an environment and you're like, oh my gosh, like this is not what I was looking for. So you could say, oh, I lost on that one. Or you could say, oh, I learned something new about myself.
Yeah.
Or I learned something about myself. Like these are my needs, you know, and sometimes like you just don't like chicken. I like chicken, you know, and for me, chicken is more valuable than you. And so it's just like that, you know, and obviously not dumbing down the community aspect and the not belonging. But in a way, you know, there's also a grieving process when you leave and you transition, and you have to acknowledge that because it's a human emotional need.
Yeah.
You know, so when there's a grieving, you can be rest assured that after grieving and mourning, it will turn into dancing.
Yeah.
So when you're grieving, then that means you have hope that something else will work out for you.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And I think that it's, you know, it's so funny. This topic opens up to so many other topics, but I think I'll end my portion here on the fact that you're like, Matt, I'm always the one that's reaching out.
Right.
I'm always the one
that
is inviting.
Right.
But nobody invites me. And what I would say to that is probably in a simple way, there's 2 forms is in relationships that I grow in and I'm investing into, there comes a point where you have to imply and define this relationship.
Yes.
And what that means for me is I need to communicate my needs.
Right.
I can't assume.
Right.
And I think it's so easy. And I think that's why we always go the easy route where we just keep giving, hoping to get something back.
Right.
Where there has to come a point in the relationship where you say, like, hey, I'd love it if you'd reach out to me. Or if you're thinking about me, would you reach out to me? It would mean so much to me.
Right.
Like, so communicating your expectations is a really healthy expression of meeting your needs.
Yes.
And I know a lot of times people are like, oh, Matt, you know, it sounds really selfish. No, but the reality is that's healthy relationship. That's healthy communication.
Yes.
Is to communicate where you're at, what you need. And I know that's something that we've grown in and still growing in. In our marriage relationship is if I keep assuming that you should know what I'm thinking,
right, and vice versa,
right, then I'm always going to be experiencing disappointment. Yep. So, you know, it's a dance. Relationship's always a dance, you know, and so inviting people into awareness of what you need, and what I would call it a boundary, whatever you want to call it, is just communicating your need, keeping out in front of you. So if we're sitting at a table and you have all of the table covered in your stuff, then I don't feel known. Right. So I need to insert that piece of me. I need to, I guess, call it show up.
Yes.
So show up, and it's not mean. It's not selfish. It is being present.
Yes.
Being present. Here I am.
Yes. And that's really key. That's one of the things, and also I will wrap up with this. One of the things
relationships now.
One of the things that we have we've addressed in the Coil Coaching Women in the first part, you know, I actually have that video up on our community, just so whenever
Mm.
somebody comes in, they get to hear the heart of the community.
Yes.
And one of those is your commitment, your presence.
Mm.
So obviously, like, we have a once a month online gathering for 2 hours. And so what I ask from the women is that, like, hey, if you can just be, I don't need your 1 year commitment. I just need your 2 hour commitment when you show up.
Right.
That's 2 hours once a month, when you join in, because when you are present and you show up, people benefit from the community. So when we do breakout rooms, we're like, hey, this is your opportunity to show up.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning that, okay, there's 3, if you're not comfortable talking to in front of 70 to 80 people, then we we have some time when we break out in breakout rooms where there's 3 or 4 people in there, and a lot more times people are more confident and more courageous to speak up. And so just showing up is key. Showing up, bringing yourself, being present is so key in the belonging process.
Yes.
So I'm going to end it with this quote. Oh, this has been a great conversation.
We
may do like a part 2 of a different angle here.
we always do that. We're always like, we get into it. We're like, oh, we haven't quite finished this thought.
Yes. Because there's some key things in there that you mentioned. And like, I think this could be a separate conversation.
Yeah.
So I'm going to end with this quote. A person who is appreciated will always do more than what is expected.
Yeah, it's so good.
And again, the key thing here is not doing, it's the belonging, it's the being.
Yes.
When people are being appreciated and celebrated with their unique identity for who they are, especially when they show up with their vulnerability, they always do more than what is expected. So we're going to end here, but we want to invite you into this conversation, whether you can sit, you're listening and you're like, I want to chime in on what Matt said. Comment, send us an email, go to our website, go to our Facebook, our Instagram, wherever this is posted, engage.
Yeah.
Maybe you can pause the video, have a conversation with somebody else. We want you to get something out of it, but also we recognize that you do have something to offer too. Like, you can show up.
Yeah.
So a couple of reflecting questions that you could ask after, listening to all the questions we asked earlier is, what was the most meaningful and valuable to you in this conversation?
Yeah.
And the other one that's important is, what learning or new understanding did you find in regards on the topic of belonging?
Yeah.
So anyway, we love you guys. We thank you for journeying with us on this conversation.
Yeah.
We will see you soon.
Next time.
Next time.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.